on this episode of Postcards.
Since I make things that are so permanent, they'll likely live well beyond my life, and I enjoy the idea that someone has to reconcile with those objects.
Collecting nutcrackers, I jokingly say it's a disease. Once you start doing it, it just kind of compels you to keep going.
It doesn't have to be in a metro area where you would find a quality craft beer available.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org. Playing today's new music plus your favorite hits, 96.7 Cram. Online at 967cram.com.
I am the CEO and director of Coffee Contemporary Arts, the curator for Lord Grizzly Gallery, the head curator for the Washington Pavilion Visual Arts Center. I'm a practicing artist, and I am the head instructor of La Verne Taekwondo. Well, I'm from Minnesota, born in Minnesota. Grew up about 15 minutes from here, went to middle school, high school, right in La Verne. At about 21, I enlisted in the Army. Not because I was particularly patriotic or like super sensible about why I was doing that, more because I needed insurance, and there was a commercial in the break room at work, and it was like, "Do you want to see the world?" And I was like, "Yes." They're like, "Do you want to do this?" And it was like a guy jumping out of a helicopter, and he looked really exciting. And so I walked out of that job, and I walked straight to the recruiting office, and I joined the Army. It did some of those things for me, but more than anything, I think it set me up financially to be able to have some mobility. When I got out of the military, my wife and I got married. We bought a home in St. Paul. We were expecting our child, Elijah, so we already had Alexis, our oldest, and we were expecting Elijah. And I decided that on a whim, it was like, my whole life, everyone had always told me that I was like remarkably talented as an artist. Or just had this, you know, I don't know if anyone has ever had that moment in school or in education where on the days when they're like, you have to do math, and you're like, oh, I'm totally failing this. But on the days when they're like, you get to be creative, you're like, this is it for me. And I knew that, but I never really had the confidence to pursue that as a career. And I got into Yale, and I got into the Rhode Island School of Design, and I chose the Rhode Island School of Design. My wife and I sold our house, we packed up, we moved across the country, moved to Providence. I got my MFA there in sculpture, outright amazing experience. We were just so stretched living on the East Coast. And so we're like, well, let's just go back to Minnesota where we have great public education, great public television, right? Right? So we came back to La Verne for the weekend. I got a job adjunct at the University of Minnesota in the sculpture department. We intended to be here for 2 days. It's now been 6 years. We were here like 3 days. I got offered a job at a high school and I took it. Over the last 6 years, my wife and I, have been raising our kids here. They're going to the school we grew up going to. We bought a house here in this town. And then this building came up for sale about a year after we bought that house. And I had this vision of, instead of always leaving our community to go seek culture and arts, we're like, well, what if we created a program that brought culture and arts to us? So I could bring great art from around the country or around the world to my hometown and invert the cultural narrative, right? Instead of having like always seeking the culture, we could bring it here. So we have the gallery. I have the studio space where we do public lectures, we do community education classes. In the summer we probably do 15 to 20 community ed classes. We have a fully functional wood shop. It has basically every wood tool you can imagine. Upstairs there's about a 6,000 square foot space where my wife, myself, and my kids live. We also have a space, an artist in residence space that serves as an Airbnb when artists are not in it. And then in the basement we have about a 2,000 square foot martial arts studio. That's what's in the building. Since I make things that are so permanent, they'll likely live well beyond my life, and I enjoy the idea that someone has to reconcile with those objects. But I also like them to feel vaguely religious, to feel a little bit familiar, so that you like see it and you're like, this feels like a thing I would know, but it's not the thing I know. Kind of a Debbie Downer thing, but my wife had gone to a conference in Utah where they were talking about how many years until we have to make some really active changes to circumvent climatary conditions, and it's like, oh, 12 years and we have irreversible climatary change. Whether you believe that or not is irrelevant. It's just like the conversation, how it was moving forward. And then I was like, so how long before no more humans? And she's like, well, if nothing changed and the Earth continued to increase based on whether we're doing it or not, we have about 150 years. And I was like, oh, well, then why am I making art? What a waste of time. I should be like learning how to terraform the moon, or I should try to be figuring out something to make the world better or safer. Because the adage that I was living by was this idea that my daughter won't see her grandchildren because there just won't be a place for them to live. And whether or not that's true or not, it was this kind of stark realization of, what does it mean to be making, and how conscious am I of what my work is doing or isn't doing? And I'm not being political with this work. It's purely speaking, it's a realization of what is my legacy, truly and honestly. Like what's the legacy we leave behind? And so moving back to this building as an idea of legacy perpetuation, I could have named this Henrik's Contemporary Art, but I feel like there's a more important story to tell, which is the story of John Paul Coffey, the man who built this building, or Lord Grizzly Gallery, which is the story of the Manfred family, which is a more interesting story. And so if I can be a vehicle for those narratives, then I will. You can cart yourself all over the country and find the most beautiful vistas in Boulder, Colorado. And if you're too far from someone who loves you, then it doesn't matter. None of it does. You can live anywhere, and if nobody loves you there, it's not the place you want to be. And so it's more effective work if it's based in a heartfelt movement. You want to see some crazy Legos? All this, and then all those are separated basically by like genre. I don't know, I remember being a kid and being like, Dad, can I get this like $20 Lego set? And he'd be like, no. And then as an adult, my son's like, can I get this? And I'm like, yes, you can. Because I'm the one with the money now. Canarenzee, Minnesota was my first hometown. It's got 23 people. We moved from there to a farm with nothing. We didn't have a house. We built the house on the farm. We had no running water, no heat for the first winter that we lived there. Absolute stark poverty. To think that someone who was born into that I've been able to art has allowed me to go to objectively the best art school in the world, the oldest fine art institution in the country. And it's not because I'm particularly special. It's because art has given me access to these things. And the kind of beauty of life is maybe that art allowed me to come back here on my own terms and create my own narrative which is, I think, different than how other people find themselves in a place. That art has given me the agency to choose.
Hearing people say, let's go see the museum, and the other person says, oh, well, you've seen one museum, you've seen them all. I thought they would not have seen this. My name is Betty Mann. I'm president of the Historical Society in Rock County. Back in 1994, which was a long time ago, someone asked me if I would serve on the board. And I said yes in a weak moment. And I went to the first meeting and came out president. And I've been president ever since. Back in 2000, I lost my husband and my oldest daughter. And as you can imagine, that Christmas was a tough Christmas for me. The very first Saturday in January of 2001, I was in the Cracker Barrel. And everything, Christmas was half price. And I said to my daughter-in-law, you know, I had a tough Christmas and I've always wanted a wooden nutcracker, and I'm buying myself a belated Christmas present, and I paid $6 for one of the nutcrackers. And that's what started this whole thing. I had the collection in my home, and I had many people come and see it in my home. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. My family gave me many, many of my collection. And anytime I went on a trip, I always tried to find a souvenir nutcracker from that trip. But when I donated my collection of 2,500, we put them in here 3 years ago, and then a gentleman from Sioux Falls came over and donated another 1,300. Every now and then we have someone who has been here and has some nutcrackers they have collected, and their children don't want them. And so, yes, we have many people who donate. To our knowledge, we are the third largest in the world. There's one in Leavenworth, Washington, that houses 7,000 nutcrackers. We have here 4,100, over 4,100. Most categories, if we have more than one nutcracker, we have them together. Here we have occupations, different occupations, and the military is down here, and then up at the top we have the larger ones. We have sports, we have animals, policemen, firemen, pirates. Our collection is also anything that kind of looks or related to a nutcracker. The lady that has the large collection does not have a rug or does not have dishes. She does not have puzzles. She does not have a throw like we have in our collection. And so our collection is different than hers. It would be fun to have the largest, but the problem is the space. Right now, we are full to the brim, really, and so it would be very difficult. We have some antiques from the late 20s and 30s that are antique dishes or pitchers, or we have one little dish that is very, very small, and it says Gum Guard on it. In the 1920s, gum was a premium, and you didn't chew your gum and throw it away. You had a dish that you put it on it and maybe chewed it the next day. That doesn't sound very good, but that was the way it was. At Christmas time, 4 years ago, I have a grandson who was then 8 years old, and he whispered in my ear, "Grandma, I made you a nutcracker out of my Legos." It is just Legos, kind of looks like a soldier, but in his eyes, it was a nutcracker, and it does have an open mouth, so we think it is. Nutcrackers were basically started in Germany, and the first nutcrackers did probably crack nuts, but the wooden nutcrackers, you'd have to have a very, very soft-shelled nut to be able to crack a nut with it. But nutcrackers started many, many, many years ago because nuts were always a basic part of our food that we ate, and so some of them look like pliers, kind of, but they have maybe a head on them, something different, and there's all different kinds of sizes and shapes of nutcrackers, and those early ones like that, many of them are metal. This nutcracker is made in Germany, and Christian Albrecht, when he first started having them, he would put his first name, Christian, on it. But now they're just called Steinbach. But the reason that this is quite valuable is this one is called the King of Nutcrackers, and because he's holding two. And if you look at the bottom, it is signed on the bottom and dated. There is two nutcrackers that are mechanical, and they're hooked up to the lights on the Christmas tree, and they actually march or walk, and their arms move. And those two are the only two in the whole collection that are the same. Otherwise, there's no duplicates. Collecting nutcrackers, I jokingly say it's a disease. Once you start doing it, it just kind of compels you to keep going. And it has been, I've had a very enjoyable 19 years or 18 years, whatever it is that I've been doing it. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And when I go on a trip or something and I see a nutcracker, or if I go into an antique shop or someplace that I see a nutcracker, and my adrenaline gets all going and I get very excited. And then once I buy it and put it on the shelf, then it's just like one of the other ones.
We have great support from our community. So people are hosting and having their weddings here, their class reunions, their graduations, family get-togethers. Last night we had trivia. So we partnered with the Rock County Community Library. We have some magnificent librarians there, and they do a monthly trivia for us.
And I know you can't, then you can come to 2 trivia nights in a row.
I love the people that come through the door. So I like to hear their stories, what they have to share, what brought them to our community, what they've discovered in our community. That's a lot of fun to hear those stories. What's fun about everyone coming in is they all have a different story. So it's fun to hear those different stories of why people are coming into the brewery. People that are even in the community have their own story for wanting to come in and support the brewery. And people are traveling for a destination, for an adventure, to come and check out Take 16 Brewing Company.
I I started working a little over 5 years ago. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. We had a big party out in our parking lot. We had inflatables and axe throwing and live music all day. It was awesome. I started a small brewery when I was going to college, and I was contacted by Take 16 to get information about how to start a brewery. And then shortly after that, I decided to join Take 16 as their brewer. The process of making beer is very creative. We take raw agricultural ingredients and make them into a delicious beverage for people to enjoy. It takes a lot of practice. It's part art, part science, and it's a lot of fun. Cheers. So I'm a very creative person, so that's like the best part of my job is being creative. So I love coming up with new recipes and sampling it out to people and seeing if they like it. I love that aspect of making beer, but also making beer is a lot about consistency. So you have to take these ingredients, these agricultural ingredients that change all the time, and try to make the same beer. So the reason we do this is we are, that grid, those lines I was talking about, it's a grid, and inside the grid we're going to count cells. So actual individual yeast cells inside that grid, and then multiply it up by the amount of volume that we took. And basically I'm trying to figure out how many pounds of yeast I need to add to a batch, because we want it to be consistent. If you add too less or too much, the beer is going to change wildly. One of my favorite beers we make is called Nostalgia. It's a sour red ale that's aged in barrels. Very, very tart. And it is made with a mixed culture, meaning instead of just yeast fermenting the beverage, there's lots of organisms working on it. It's very pleasant to drink and very delicious.
I'm Dan Dobson. I'm one of the co-founders of the Take 16 Brewing here in Laverne. We came up with this idea as a way to be a destination for Laverne with a group of people in the community, and over time we kind of just had more and more interest in the idea of this coming to reality.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that is. That's delicious.
Well, I think the whole idea too was where we decided to make this a community business, not just 4 or 5 business people getting together, where we invited the community to become part of this whole concept of being owners of a brewery and them taking stock in it. So I think that's a good part. That really is. It sets us apart from a lot of the other craft beer companies around the country. I think it's given us one more shining aspect of Laverne, Minnesota, what it has to offer. We wanted it to be a destination, just to give people another reason for them to maybe jump off of the interstate and explore this little community and what the assets are that we have here in this community, and to kind of highlight that this kind of business can exist in a small rural community. It doesn't have to be in a metro area where you would find a quality craft beer available. I love telling the story of how this came about and the people's reaction when they actually get to taste the product. They go, it's really good. Luke is an awesome brewer, and he has some wonderful profile beer recipes, and it is exciting to have people taste it and say, this is good quality craft beer.
Feel like I am on the dark side of the moon when you and I are standing here in the same room in the dark, invisible to you. I'm waking up from the same old dream. Your gentle touch is a fading memory. your cold heart makes me shiver in my sleep. And I have found all I need when I get lost in you. And when you look my way, you see through me, but all I can see is you. What we once had, I count it now as lost. It got bad, and a certain line was crossed. Your cold heart, it makes me shiver at the thought. But I have found all I need when I get lost in you. And when you look my way, you see through me, but all I can see is you. You love the thought of us, but you never love me. There's nothing left for me. But I have found all I need when I get lost in you. And when you look my way, you see through me, but all I can see is you.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage-funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org. Playing today's new music plus your favorite hits, 96.7 Cram. Online at 967cram.com.